the past. She lives behind those bars of steel and waits for her release. Will she die, or will we see Jerusalem in peace? She lives behind these bars of steel and waits for her release. Will she die, or will we see Jerusalem in peace? Jerusalem is sending her voice from inside the prison of disbelief. Stand up, you people of the one God, to bring about her release. Stand up, you people of the one God, to bring about her release.
What a song, right? Incredible. What a song. As you know, we just returned from Palestine, and the land of the three Abrahamic faiths, of course. And what are the characteristics of the children of Abraham? What are the characteristics? What are their belief systems? What is it that they invest themselves in? They believe, the children of Abraham believe in hope. People of the book, and the book is filled with images of streams being created in the desert, oases created in barren lands, of lions lying down with lambs. The Abrahamic children, the three brothers that David so beautifully sings about. What a song. All three brothers love their father. He loves each of them the best. Isn't that beautiful? I mean, what a way of describing God's love for God's children. But as we discovered in Palestine, and I discovered in previous visits to Israel, Sister Faith is a prisoner, and peace is far from found in this place, in this land. They're beautiful, wonderful people, activists working for peace. They have not yet won the day, but they will. As a people of the Abrahamic faith, they hold on to that hope, that day when the healing will be brought to those who are sick, sight given to the blind, and prisoners set free. So here we are. This is in the Judean desert. Now, I'm like right in the way for some of you. I apologize. I don't know what to do about that. Do you remember the story about Jesus in the wilderness where he was out for 40 days and 40 nights, and the advocate, Satan, presents him with a stone and says, if you're hungry, turn these stones into bread. If you have faith in God, throw yourself off of this cliff. Well, that was in the Judean desert, and that's where we were that day. We traveled around. Bethlehem is where we spent most of our time. I'm just going to give you kind of a travel log, and then I'm going to talk about how the framework for forgiveness. Bethlehem, the ancient city of Bethlehem, the birthplace, as we understand it, of Jesus. This is the Church of the Annunciation, Church of the Nativity, sorry. In this place, this church is supposedly built on the place where the manger was, where Jesus was born. Of course, we don't really know, but it's a way of honoring that birth. So We were out at the Sea of Galilee. You remember when Jesus and the disciples are out on the water and a great storm comes up and all that? Well, here's the place, the Sea of Galilee. It's tropical in that part of the world. I mean, look at this. Isn't that beautiful? And when we were there, we saw some Namaste folks. Your sister bird from across the ocean says hi. Beautiful, beautiful. This is at the Mount of Beatitudes, the mountain upon which Jesus gave the Sermon on the Mount. Back to the Judean desert. Found a new friend in the Judean desert. You've heard of Bedouins? Well, here's a real live Bedouin. We traveled around seeing some of the holy sites in Jerusalem. This is the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus was betrayed, where he sweat drops of blood, as the text puts it. These olive trees are so ancient. Our tour guide said that these trees themselves could potentially be as old as 1,500 years. So, I mean, that's incredible. That's a long time for a tree. Another one of the beautiful old churches out in the countryside. And lest you think I'm only going to talk about places, let me tell you, the food was most excellent. It was incredible, delicious. Didn't know what half of it was, but it was awesome. We met some beautiful people. We met little Amir, a budding soccer star on the horizon. And then we saw the underbelly. The wall, as they call it, is going to be 440 miles when it's completed. It's 61% completed. They are constantly building. Here's another image of the wall. It's really interesting. Banksy, you know the artist Banksy? He's very active over there, and he curated an exhibit of his work at a hotel right outside the wall, right across in the occupied territory, and they called the hotel the Walled Off Hotel. And next to the Walled Off Hotel is a place where you can buy spray paint so you can spray on the wall, whatever, you do your own graffiti. It's called Walmart. There's a big sense of humor. It's incredible. It really belies the pain. Here's the wall as we discovered it on one of our side trips. This is the dead end of the very famous and ancient Jericho Road. It now is cut in two by a wall. Graffiti artists are pretty creative and doing amazing artwork. I took so many photographs of the graffiti. It's very interesting to me. But Free Palestine. Let's go back and see Amir again. Here he is in front of the home of his neighbor that was demolished just a few weeks before we got there. And lest you be fearful, fear not, because Muhammad Ali can take down one of the security towers. The Palestinian Day of Nakba began on May 15th, 1948. More than 780,000 Palestinians were forced out of their homeland. It's one of my favorite images on the wall. The heart is breaking through. I love this image. Ubuntu Fada. Ubuntu. And finally, not finally, but here's another stretch of the wall being built. And one of the curious things that we saw when we were there are these manger scenes. You know, the Christmas creches that you get, they're made out of wood. You have Mary and Joseph and Jesus in the manger, and you have the wise men on the other side of the wall. Yeah. Here's an image from the Banksy exhibit in the Waldorf Hotel. I love this image. I'll say a little bit more about it in a minute, because it's a failure of the imagination not to dream about peace. Peace is possible. We just haven't figured out how yet. And we know that however it will become manifest, it will be shocking. So instead of a Molotov cocktail or a stone, this Palestinian is throwing a bouquet of flowers. Beauty will save the world. Here's the painting of that image on a wall. So I wanted to bring your attention to these images. First, the beauty of the place, the people, the land, and then the challenges. And I'm not going to do a political speech on, you know, this side or that side, but I want to bear witness to what I saw with my own eyes and felt with my own hands, the palpable suffering of the Palestinian people. I also want to bear witness to what I saw in many of them, not all of them, but in many of them, was a resilience like I've never seen before. A resilience born of, in its own way, forgiveness. I'll say more about that in a minute. We went to a place called the Tent of Nations. Check them out online. It's this beautiful establishment, hundreds of acres. It's been in this guy's family I'll show you a picture of him, Bishara Nasser. It's been in his family for over 100 years. They have thousands of olive trees, and they have fig trees. It's in occupied territory, so they are not able to build on their land without permits, and the permits are never approved, or rarely ever approved. He hasn't gotten any approved in years. But he's teaching people how to live in the midst of this craziness, and how to be real human beings, embracing love and not fear. I just love their slogan. I'll show it to you in a minute. It's one of their main buildings. Here's some folks working in the vineyards. But check this out. The signpost you see as you go in, the stone, the vision for Tent of the Nations, is a sign in 3 languages that says, "We refuse to be enemies. I refuse to make you my enemy because that diminishes me." This is powerful stuff. I mean, I would totally be turned into an enemy, I'm sure of it. I mean, I would be so belligerent and angry that I would just die. I would be miserable and I'd die of despair, probably. But these visionary people at Tent of the Nations are growing olives that they sell, figs that they sell. They have teaching camps to teach people from all over the world. You can go there in the principles of nonviolent resistance and social transformation. It's very Gandhian, very king-like. Beautiful, beautiful stuff. There are signs of hope and healing, and this is one of them. We visited a refugee camp, Aida camp, which was established in 1948. Thousands and thousands of people. At the entrance of the Aida rescue camp, refugee camp, is an image of a keyhole and a key. The symbol of hope for the folks in the refugee camp that someday, because God will heal and transform all, someday they'll be able to go back to their homes and open the door. In the Aida refugee camp, there's a cultural center called Al Rawad, and it teaches children all kinds of stuff. The arts, music, dance, choreography, painting. We saw a couple of performances and they totally blew us away. How these children can be so resilient as they struggle with such complicated situations and painful situations is beyond me. But there's a resilience there that I want to learn from. I want to mine that gold because they have something to teach us. They talk about beautiful resistance. You know, last November, I started talking a lot about resistance, and others did too. Resistance and resilience, I wrote a little piece after our election. Well, what I had in mind maybe wasn't so beautiful. They're talking about beautiful resistance, resistance through art. This is a picture of Martin Joseph. He is the musician who called this whole thing into being. He and his wife Justine and their nonprofit called Let Yourself Trust, in partnership with the Amos Trust in the UK, put this trip together. And there were 35 of us on this cultural pilgrimage to Palestine. We spent all of our nights in occupied territory. We made very few visits outside of occupied territory. We visited the ancient city of Hebron. We visited Capernaum. We visited, as I said, the Judean desert, Bethlehem, and there was this beautiful valley called Batir. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site now, where Roman baths fill the valley with water, and they have this magnificent farmland. Just amazing stuff going on there. Charlie Chaplin was there. What unites human beings is huge and wonderful. What divides human beings is small and mean. I posted this on my Facebook page and someone responded, and has tiny hands. One of my high school buddies. You never know. So, a few things I learned from our friends: that it's important to refuse to be enemies. We don't have the luxury of despair. The man who is the coordinator, the executive director of the Al Rawad Cultural Center says, you know, I don't have the luxury to despair. I have children, my own, to take care of, and I have a community of children looking to me for hope. Don't have the luxury of despair, and we embrace creative resistance. So it was more than just, you know, a vacation or a cultural pilgrimage for us to go there. For me, it's so deeply connected with my work as the director of a nonprofit called the Gardens of Forgiveness. And we're going to talk a lot about forgiveness next weekend. I hope you all sign up for it. It's training that literally has changed and saved probably my life. And I share it with you as the gold that I have discovered in my journey in life since 9/11. In 2005, as a part of that, we started a nonprofit in New York City called the Gardens of Forgiveness, and our big, hairy, audacious goal was a Garden of Forgiveness at Ground Zero. Why not? Well, some of you know the story of how that turned out. The only thing less popular than the Islamic Center at Ground Zero in New York was a Garden of Forgiveness in Ground Zero in New York. They had 39% approval, we had 4%. I was called out on the Bill O'Reilly show for having the audacity to talk about forgiveness. Yeah. So we have active conversations in a few places. Beirut, Lebanon is the site of the world's first Garden of Forgiveness. And their model is what we have sought to implement in other places around the world. After their civil war, which claimed 300,000 plus lives, a woman named Alexandra Asali courageously lobbied for, fought for, and developed a garden of forgiveness in the Green Line section of Beirut, where the folks faced off against the snipers faced off against one another during their civil war. Now, both leaders of the opposing militia are working together for a better Lebanon through the Garden of Forgiveness. Their penance is to work on forgiveness and to create this for other people. We have an active dialogue in Kigali, Rwanda. When I was here with you last, I mentioned that briefly. Nairobi is another possibility of a great conversation going there with the folks at the cathedral in Nairobi. Israel, Palestine, who knows? I think the most contested, sacred piece of land in the world is the Temple Mount. The Jewish folks call it the Temple Mount. The Muslim folks call it the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Why not? A garden of forgiveness. Let's dream big. As Bishop Tutu said, there's no future without forgiveness. So New York City, LA, Gettysburg, that would be an amazing place to have a garden of forgiveness in our country, given our history. And we actually have one in Asheville at the Unitarian Church. A little strip of land, but it's a garden of forgiveness, and we were there to dedicate it last year. So now, what does forgiveness have to do with where I live right now in my life, and how in any way is that related to the Palestinian resistance? Let's see what forgiveness is not. It's not condoning unkindness. It's not forgetting that something painful has happened. It's not excusing poor behavior. It does not have to be an otherworldly or a religious experience. It is not denying or minimizing your hurt. It does not mean reconciling with the offender. That's another step. It does not mean you have to give up having your feelings, and it does not exclude the pursuit of justice. So how can you be in occupied territory and embrace the idea of forgiveness? Because that is what will enable you to continue to live with a clean and open heart, not diminished or destroyed by the bitterness and anger that obviously is waiting to consume you. I can't imagine what it would be like. But it's the man at Al Rawad saying, I don't have the luxury of despair. It's someone saying, hate is too great a weight to bear. You remember the Charleston 9, the family members of the loved ones killed at the church in Charleston a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. They said they forgave Dylan Roof because they didn't want to carry the hate. Mm-hmm. They also said prosecute it, because that's why we have laws, and that's what justice is. But I'm not going to carry around in my heart this woundedness, this bitterness, and let it poison my life. So let's look at what forgiveness is. It's the peace that we learn to feel when we let go of unresolved grievances. Some of you, we were talking earlier, they have some unresolved grievances and some anger. Well, I love the quotation. Lily Tomlin said that forgiveness means giving up all hope of a better past. Doesn't make it right, but to carry it is not the most helpful thing we can do. Forgiveness is for you and not for the offender. Forgiveness is taking back your power. It's saying, I am no longer going to be a victim in your narrative, but I'm going to be a hero on my own journey. And that energy is totally different. It's taking responsibility for how you feel. It's about your healing and not about the people who hurt you. It's a trainable life skill, just like learning to throw a frisbee or a baseball. It helps us get control over our feelings. It can improve our mental and physical health. By the way, a study just came out. I kid you not, this is shocking to me, and I'm a forgiveness teacher. A study just came out that says forgiveness is good for your health, on a par with quitting smoking. Isn't that incredible?
Doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. Wow. Forgiveness can improve your mental and physical health. It's becoming a hero instead of a victim. It's a choice, and everyone can learn to forgive. There is a creative resistance in the art and pursuit of forgiveness. So maybe some of you this morning are carrying some stuff, the guy who cut you off in traffic on the way over here, or the person in Whole Foods in Asheville who, you're in a real hurry and you're in the line that says 20 items or less, but the person in front of you has more than 20 items in her cart. Maybe you're dealing with some of that stuff. This stuff can build up in you. It can attach itself and it can grow. So next weekend we're going to have an opportunity to go through the 6-hour Forgiveness 101 methodology that I teach. It's going to be fun. It's not all like doom and gloom or scary stuff. It's going to be really fun. It's going to, believe me, it's going to be an opportunity for you to take stock of your journey and to think about how you want to pursue the next steps. Forgiveness is setting a prisoner free and then finding out that the prisoner was you. Yeah. Can I get an amen on that one?
Amen.
Yes.
I have a question about the Palestinians.
Okay.
How are they taking the Israelis building whatever they're building, housing on Palestinian land?
Well, they're not happy about it, I can tell you that.
I know they're not
Yeah.
happy about it.
Yeah, because lots of times it's
Are
built on
they
the
just-
aquifers for the
Are they
land
just
too.
taking it, or what?
That's what's happening in the settlements, yes.
So they're not fighting it? They're not.
Well, they don't have an army.
I know
and
they don't.
They barely have a political organization, and they're shrinking in number.
And of
And-
course, the
and
United States is
the world has
backing
forgotten them.
Israel in this.
Yeah,
And
it's
I
a
just
very
wondered,
complicated situation.
it
now.
is very complicated.
Yeah.
And I just wondered, how can the United States back Israel when this land was divided by the UN, which was
Well, let me.
previously owned by the United Kingdom, who
Well, the
divided it.
Palestinians owned it 2,000 years
Yes,
ago because
yes.
Jesus was a Palestinian.
And
But, yeah.
drew the
What
line.
I'd like to do, though, is I'd like to reframe this because I don't want to turn this into a political
No, I don't
conversation.
either.
But, and the reason I said what I said earlier, I didn't say this, that, and the other. I said I saw with my own eyes the suffering, and it's real.
That's
And
what
how do
I'm
we
asking.
deal with it is maybe the question for another time. But what I learned in that experience is there's some incredible resilient people working, living for the day when the occupation ends. And they're on the other side too. They're Jewish activists. We saw some of the most courageous Jewish activists I've ever seen in my life, putting their lives on the line for what they believe in. And it's powerful. It's really powerful. Well, I think I've gone a little over time. I apologize. I hope you'll really consider coming next weekend and being with
the
us.
following weekend, the 20th.
Oh, yeah, don't come next weekend because
You come next Sunday for service.
come next Sunday, but the following
Friday.
weekend, come for that experience, and we'll talk more about Forgiveness 101, or as we said in California, the F word revolution. Thank you so much for having me.